So Peter Barnhart's last. Peter, 15 years now? 15 years. Peter is a partner in our business in all of our projects, heads up our development area. Our business has grown so much, in part, large part, because of Peter's involvement and engagement in our business, in our development area in particular, which is the largest part of our business. We own a platform of companies, is the way our company is structured, so we own a number of different businesses, but by far the largest business segment is our land development area, and Peter heads that up. He's a phenomenal guy, great guy, father's got 2 beautiful daughters, been married, how long have you been married now? 19 years. AGGIE class of what?
93.
93. So welcome, Peter Barnhart.
Thank you. Howdy. I love to do that. It's better here than it is anywhere else. So I'm going to talk to you guys, and some of you guys have heard me speak before, but I'm going to talk to you about 3 things today. So just try to, I was told one time a long time ago when I started speaking to people that, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So I'm going to talk to you about 3 things today. One Fred has already hit on, and it's your peg. I want to just kind of talk to you a little bit about my journey and figuring out what my passion and what my experience or what my gifting was and what my experience and passion grew into. I want to talk to you a little bit about my career path, just because I think it's relevant. You guys are about to go out into the world, and you're about to start looking for your first job. And then I'm going to kind of talk to you about 3 different ways to really, if you really want to do what we do for a living, and you think that's your career path, kind of where you should plug in. So, yeah, there's me with hair. I had some other pictures up there that the team made me remove them. There's a shoebox that is missing from my closet that I can't find, and I really want to find it because there's some pictures in there that shouldn't be out. College was a fun time for all of us. So my peg. So these are going to kind of fly up there in maybe the wrong order, but I wanted to start with kind of gifting. So gifting for, from the time I was a little kid, I knew what I liked to do. I mean, I loved to build things. I had the most amazing tree forts in the world. I mean, they were decked out to the nines. They were the envy of the neighborhood. So I knew that. I enjoyed it. And that's also my passion today. So what I was gifted at has really it's kind of gone from different roles that I've played in my career, but it's still my passion. I love to build things. I love to build, physical things. I like to build teams. I like to build unity within teams. I love puzzles. And that's another part of my gifting, and I'll come down to that in a second. From the time I was a little kid, I loved puzzles. I did really well at those tests where you had to figure out what was going on behind the scenes. It's always been something I've done really well at. Puzzles are, when my family gets together over the holidays, puzzles are that and Monopoly are the 2 things that we excel at. I love connecting people, and as another thing, as a gifting. So a lot of my gifting has again grown into my passion. Since the time I was a little kid, I can make friends with a fence post. It's never been an issue for me to go out and meet people, shake hands with people, connect people, and really as a passion in connecting people. That's as Fred was talking about earlier. That's anybody out there read a book called Love Languages? 5 Love Languages, right there. Yeah. So my love language is service. And not until I took that, did I really, that test a long time ago, did I realize that. But then you look back at it, retrospectively, and you say, that's always been my love language. So connecting people to me is my act of service. I mean, I love to do that. It's serving people, and if you'll do this, and I always tell people this, and I tell my kids this, I said, if you do this and you don't have a single thought in it about what it's going to do for me, it will come back to you amazingly. Just connecting people, just how can I help you? Oh, I know somebody, here, talk to this guy. This guy's really going to help you out, and just do it, and have no expectation whatsoever about what that's going to do for you. So I'm going to go over to gifting real quick. So I kind of talked about gifting. Analytical mind, I've known that. since I was a kid. It's just been easy for me, ability to connect with others, and driven sometimes to a fault. Very competitive. I'm seeing that play out right now in raising my 15, about to be 16-year-old daughter. She is also have the same set of gifting that I do, and we end up like that. So resolving conflict amongst people, when you realize that that's part of your gifting, it can also be a fault and a drawback as well. So experience. Experience for me has been really taking different roles, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, in my career, and those different roles kind of guiding me to where I felt like I could play the best, and really what my passion is. So my experience in building things, my experience in analyzing things, and my experience in selling things and connecting people really drives the passion for me, which is creating places, because it takes all those things together to create those places. So one final thing on PEG is I would encourage you guys to do is sit down with someone that you really trust and you really care, that really cares about you and can be really open and really brutally honest with you. It's a parent, it's a grandparent, it's a professor. Sit down with them and ask them, where do you fit? What is your gifting? What experience do you have right now? And it'll start to give you a little bit of an inkling as to where your passion may lie and where your lane is going to be. I never did that. I've kind of done this, over time, and between people like Fred and my parents and my grandparents, and you kind of pick up little things about where they affirm you. That's always kind of where someone is affirming you is always, they're doing that for a reason because you did a good job at it. So it's kind of an inkling of where your gifting may be. But I would sit down formally and do that before you kind of set out, to find your first entree into the working world. And ask someone for brutal truths. Really, it's like, where am I really good at, and where should I not play? So here's just a little bit about my career path. I'm just going to try to kind of give you some thoughts and lessons as I went and I started. And so my first job out of school, so my education, I had a bachelor's in construction science, a minor in finance, and an MS in land development. And for me, I'm one of the few people I know of out there that when I look at what I learned in school, I use a lot of that on a regular basis. And I was very fortunate in that regard. There's a lot of you guys have amble your way through undergraduate and graduate trying to figure that out. So I was very fortunate in that regard. I think it kind of helped me excel early on in my career and plug in. So my first job out of school, so when I was in college, I had a roommate whose parents owned a mini storage warehouse in College Station, and they wanted to add on to it. And they didn't want to pay the contractor what he wanted to pay, so they asked me if I would do it. And I was like, I built houses as an intern, but I learned. And they gave me free rein to go out and build this one thing. And it was not sexy, but you learned a project, and you just plugged in and just rolled up your sleeves and figured out how to do it. So through that, I was introduced to a company in Houston, or a lady in Houston, that was buying things from the RTC. How many of you guys know what the RTC is? Okay, that was at the end of that was when the government was basically selling off all the assets of failed lending institutions. So this was a Canadian investor that had come into town, and they bought mini storage warehouses and Class C apartments. And so how sexy is that? So how many guys in your capstone courses have dreamed about going out and managing Class C apartments and mini storage warehouses and remodeling them? And but what I saw in that opportunity. First of all, there weren't that many opportunities in the early 90s getting out of anything in the real estate development business. But what I saw in that is I saw an opportunity to learn a bunch of different things. I saw it was small enough so I could enjoy an entrepreneurial area. We could look for deals, we could fix deals, we could build deals. I looked for that. I looked for an opportunity to get exposed to financing and how deals were put together, and a little bit of operations. And so I learned a lot of things. I learned a lot of things I liked, and I learned a lot of things I did not like. I did not like managing Class C apartment complexes, but I learned a lot of lessons from managing Class C apartment complexes. My second job was a company called Realty Corp in South Carolina. And again, I was given an opportunity, and not at great pay, but a great opportunity, and with a lot of upside because it was a startup company. And when you're in your 20s, you're traveling pretty light, or you should be. I mean, unless you're married, you're not raising kids yet, or many of you aren't. And so I saw it as an opportunity, take a risk, and it seems like a good opportunity, and it turned out to be a great opportunity. It taught me perseverance. Learned a lot about sales in that environment. Learned a lot about making a deal and putting people together and connecting people. Perseverance, just in terms of a startup company, takes a while to kind of get to some of the financial rewards that we talked about. But very fulfilling, great experience. Sage men that I worked for that have isms that go on forever. So about 6 years into that, I was introduced to Fred through a friend of ours that was a Yale leader at A&M while he was playing football here. And what did John say about me? Yeah, he's not like you. So, and really, I wasn't. And it was part of my struggle in terms of deciding whether to take that job or not. But I did, and it was for a reason, and it led me down some great paths. So what have I learned at Caldwell Companies in 15 years? My gosh, I mean, we could go on for the next 15, 20 minutes. But, as you kind of get into your 30s and 40s, you really start to refine what you want to do and think about it a lot more. It becomes more of a rifle as opposed to a shotgun. I think the shotgun is better when you're younger and you're trying to figure it out and you're trying to learn a lot of different skills. I know what I really like to do. I mean, there's not really any question in that right now. I love to build things. I love to connect people and put deals together, and that really fires me up to do that. I've also learned a lot about leading people, and that's something that comes with experience. You've got to, so all of us, there's a lot of people out there that are great leaders, and you're a natural leader, and you were the leader of the playground, and you were the leader of your fraternity in school or whatever it is, and you'll do really well at that, but without experience, you won't do as well as you can. But so learn to lead people. Going through a very tough cycle. I tell you what, 2009 and 2010 was as rough as it got for me. And I didn't go through the 80s, obviously, but the people I know of in this business, lenders going bankrupt, the reality of debt. That's my last one on here. Is like just how real debt is and how much it can sink you. Both personally and from a business standpoint. So I encourage all of you guys to travel light. When we have young folks that come into our company, we see them making, poor financial decisions or potentially poor financial decisions. We take it upon ourselves, or I do anyway, to maybe point that out and say, hey, this is probably a better path for you. So travel light. Guy I used to work for told me, he said, Peter, two things he told me about debt. Peter, they can't break you if you don't owe them, which I can't say that I've followed his rule, but that was Walter. They can't break you if you don't owe them. And I asked him one time about a man in town that I was about to go meet, and he told me, he said, I said, what do you know about him? And he said, because I don't know, I've never seen him broke. So his point was, I've never seen that guy at his worst, so I really don't know much about that guy. So career path. So if you want to be a developer, and a lot of you guys in the MLPD that have heard me speak before, this is kind of what I've kind of come up as advice to give those out there that really want to go into this role of being a developer. And I call them on-ramps. And E came up with this great graphic that's going to be used for a long time now. So there's 3 really ways that you can plug in with a development company as you're coming out of school. So number 1 is you build it. Number 2 is you analyze it, and number 3 is you sell it, and sales and marketing. And if you look at the successful nature of most real estate developers, they're pretty good at all 3 of those. They're probably better at one than the other 2, but they're pretty good at all 3 of those. So if that's your career goal and that's where you want to get, pick one of those on-ramps. Build it means you're a project manager, out there managing, the construction of a building, a project manager at a project like Town Lake or any of our residential projects, or a project manager for a, multifamily developer. So anywhere where you're kind of learning about the built environment and how the pieces come together physically. You'll also get exposure to the design as well at that stage. Analyze it, that's what Spencer does and does amazingly. And there's a lot of people that start off in this business in an analyst role, and kind of from there they kind of grow into another role. And so analyze it, number 2, and 3 is sell it. And that's really kind of where I spent a good part of my formative part of my career. And I'm very thankful for that, because I think it's one of the things that a lot of developers miss along the way, because they start off in one of the other areas and they don't get to that point. So you're always pitching something. You're pitching a deal to a tenant. You're pitching lots to a builder. You're pitching, your idea to your lenders and your equity partners. You're always selling yourself and your company. So good developers have skills in all 3 areas. So, and the other reality is too, when you think about development shops, we lead very large teams of people. If you look at all the different vendors that we use, they're not our employees, but they're very large teams. So the point is, there's few opportunities to plug in at a low entry level within a development organization. So you need to figure out what your peg is, what your lane is right now, knowing that lane is going to change, and where you can add value really, really, really fast to that organization. Because to Fred's point earlier of asking, well, we think you're going to do a really good job. Come into that interview and know what your peg is. Know I can swim right now, where I can add value right now. And tell that to an employer. Don't tell them you're going to do a really good job and I'll work 70 hours a week. Say, this is what I can do for you right now. Because as a development team, we look at, in any company, personnel is your number one resource. It's also your most expensive resource. It's your most important, most expensive resource. So we hire very carefully. So that person who comes up and tells us where they can add value right now, and if that makes sense to us, that person's going to get a nod. Anybody, I think, is going to think that way. So so go back to the beginning. What was I going to tell you? Sit down with someone that you trust and that cares for you. Figure out what your peg is right now. First jobs out of school, look for the one where you're going to get the most experience, and tell them where you can add value immediately. So